Welcome to this episode of This Week in Hockey East. I'm Bridgette Proulx here with Gallanty. We have a lot of important non-conference games to dive into this weekend for both the men and the women, and we'll be joined by Northeastern defenseman Jules Constantinople later on in the show. But first, let's talk about our quadruple header of NESN games on Friday. 4 Hockey East games on NESN, broadcasting starting at 1 p.m. with the BC men hosting Notre Dame at Connie Forum.
Yeah, what more could you want for Thanksgiving than 4 college hockey games in a row on Friday? It's going to be so much fun. We've talked a lot about Boston College, the way the schedule's fallen. They've been on NESN a bunch here the last couple of weeks. So just a couple of key points to get to here as the Eagles take on Notre Dame in what is just as we teased last week. This is a gigantic weekend because of how important the non-conference schedule is on both the men's side and the women's side in terms of the NPI. We'll explain the why a little bit later, but talking about the games to start with, BC split in what I thought was a really good series, felt like a playoff caliber series against Maine over the weekend. They win 7-3 on Friday. They drop Saturday's game 3-0. But even with that loss, BC's won 5 of their last 6 games since the start of November. They still are averaging more than 4 goals a game in that stretch, even after getting shut out by Mattis Russo, who was awesome for Maine on Saturday. And even Saturday, they were still at about 3.6 expected goals, despite just 21 shots. So they're still generating. And Greg Brown actually said he thought there were moments they played better Saturday than Friday, but just a couple of breakdowns that Maine took advantage of. But, they're still playing okay, and they're really one of the hottest teams in Hockey East right now. We've talked a lot of different players, Bridgette, but different guys keep stepping up for BC.
Yeah, one guy we should talk about this week is Ryan Conmey. He's our Service Credit Union scoring leader. He had 4 goals and 7 points in his last 4 games, including 2 goals and an assist on Friday night. He's a guy who early in the season had that success on the power play, and now it's starting to come 5-on-5 as well. And Greg Brown says Conmey has gotten more comfortable playing in the system now after transferring from UNH in the offseason. And Eric, let's see if BC can keep it going offensively against Notre Dame in what's a crucial weekend.
Yeah, this is one of those things that makes college hockey a little bit different than some of the other college sports, right? Because in some of the other sports, when there's subjectivity, you can afford a loss somewhere along the way that kind of gets factored out in terms of the human element. But because everything is a math problem in college hockey, right? And everything is completely objective, this is the type of game you cannot lose, right? Because Notre Dame has not gotten off to a good start. They're 3-8-1 coming into the week. They've played about the hardest schedule I've ever seen. I mean, it's just, you look at this. Since the start of November, Notre Dame has played number 2 Michigan, at Minnesota, number 1 Michigan State. Then they have this Hockey East weekend. After this, number 2 Wisconsin. Then they open the second half with number 7 Western Michigan, number 1 Michigan, and number 9 Penn State. It's completely insane. And they might actually be better than their record. But their record is what it is. So when you're at home and you're facing a team with a poor record in the non-conference, you cannot lose this game. There's not enough time to make up unless you basically win as many games as you possibly can. So this is one of those sneaky games that's so important in the course of a whole season, even though it doesn't necessarily jump off the page in terms of Notre Dame's record. But it is a rivalry game, and that always factors in. You mentioned that we're going to have a women's game as part of this NESN quadruple header, right? Penn State, Northeastern. We'll talk about that in a second with Jules. Then after that, it's Vermont taking on the number 1 team in the NPI right now, the Dartmouth Big Green. This could be a massive help to a lot of teams in the country if Vermont on Friday or Merrimack on Saturday, who's going to play Dartmouth, could get a victory or get some kind of result here against the Big Green. Their record is perfect. They're 6-0. Remember, they got off to a really good start last year under Reed Cashman, and Bridgette, they're doing it again.
Yeah, Dartmouth so far averaging 4.3 goals per game, allowing just 1.2 goals per game. They have 1 win over a ranked team. That's a 2-1 win over number 17 Cornell earlier in the season. And Big Green goalies have been good so far this year. Emmett Croto and Rowan Clark have split time in net. They both have 3 wins. They both have great goals against average and save percentage numbers. Croto with just outstanding numbers, a 1.00 goals against average, 960 save percentage. Clark right behind him with a 1.33 goals against average, 923 save percentage heading into the weekend, and that's been a factor for why they've stayed undefeated so far.
And it'll make the challenge really hard for Vermont as they try to find their offense. They're averaging under 2 goals a game so far this year. I think they've actually played okay on the back end. I know some of the results don't seem that way, but they've gotten pretty good goaltending, especially from the eye test. They had that very impressive win over Maine a couple of Saturdays ago. They've scored first in their last 2 games. So if they can find a way to get their offense going, there might be some potential here because there's some good stuff to see on the back end, but it'll be a question, can they do that against a really good Dartmouth team? So that's an interesting matchup for Vermont coming off the game against Harvard. And then following that at night, maybe the most important matchup because Providence has a real opportunity, Bridgette, going out to Colorado College for 2 games this weekend. There's not that many games left for Hockey East teams against the NCHC. This is 2 of them for Providence. The biggest thing for the Friars, Roger McQueen is starting to trend the way we all expected him to when he announced he was coming to Providence this season.
Yeah, McQueen being that top 10 draft pick, you expect him to have a great freshman season. And he got off to a little bit of a slow start in terms of the numbers, in terms of the goal numbers, but he really has been involved in the offense a lot from the jump. And you're starting to see it all come to fruition for him. He's got 4 goals in the last 4 games. He has 37 shots in the last 6 games. Nate Lehman said he was always generating the most on our team, but he just hadn't scored yet. So it was only a matter of time, and now the goals are coming too. And he's really firing off shots, winning a lot of face-offs. He's got good size, and that's what's been making him effective over the last few weeks.
Yeah, he's been really good on the faceoff. And if you try to think of what can you do to quantify that? Like, if we take a number like game score, which I know is a little bit in the weeds, but it basically just like adds all the things together that you're talking about, not just scoring and put it in one number. Ryan Sykes does a really good job. He put this note out on Twitter. McQueen actually has the second highest average game score of any player in Hockey East this year. So that basically backs up what Nate Lehman said, that he's been maybe Providence's best player. The question was, were the goals going to come, Bridgette? And now they have in a big way. And we'll see if they can continue that against Colorado College, a good NCHC team that we already saw split against UConn earlier this year. They're 7-6 right now. They got a win over Duluth last weekend. So a lot of really big games, but an even bigger one on the women's side coming up. Penn State, Northeastern. This should be fantastic and a great measuring stick. We're going to talk with Jules Constantinople next on This Week in Hockey East. Welcome back to This Week in Hockey East. As always, our guest is brought to you by Boston Harbor Hotel. You can still plan your fall getaway. Still a few days left at bostonharborhotel.com and experience Boston's best waterfront views. Jules Constantinople of the Northeastern Huskies is nice enough to join us here on this Thanksgiving week. Jules, thanks so much for spending a minute with us. You guys have gotten off to such a good start in Hockey East play, 9-0, best start in program history. What has been the key so far to you guys playing so well in the conference?
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. I think our depth. I think we come to the rink. It's crazy that this is the best program start. I think we come to the rink every day. We want to work hard. I think it's the culture we set. I think it's everyone comes in, buys in, and everyone just wants to be here. So.
You always have seemed to be pretty comfortable jumping up into the offense as a defenseman, and it's led to some good offensive stats for you already this season. Do you think your offensive ability helps set you apart from other defenders in the league?
Yeah, I definitely think it definitely sets me apart. I think I am someone that does play D first, but I do love to jump in and take my offensiveness to the net. I do think it does set me apart.
Jules, you mentioned that culture piece a little bit, and Dave Flint's been doing this for a long time. You guys have had so much success. What are the things that we don't get to see that you guys get to see every day that allows you guys to have such a good culture as a group?
I think it comes from our coaching staff, but it also comes from our leadership. I think Coach Flint is definitely a easygoing guy. He's very quiet. So I think when you get him riled up, it definitely motivates us a little bit. But I think his main focus is if you just come in, work hard, and you buy in, there's the good results. And it seems to be working with us with the start we've had.
And we've seen women's hockey continue to grow a bigger fan base and have bigger stages over the last few years. And you were part of the last 2 Bean Pots held at TD Garden. Your team won both. What did you feel like we've seen on that stage? How was it like to perform on that stage?
It's insane. I think the first year it was definitely nerve wracking playing in front of that many people. You could like see our heart rates, like we were uh, all skyrocketing. But I definitely think it's just growing the game more. I think each year, like the first year, it was big, and then the second year when we went out there was even more people, and I can't wait to see what happens this year with it. It's just incredible to see the growth it has.
I guess jumping off that, there's been this moment, it feels like, right, that PWHL has done a really nice job of, growing the sport the last couple of years, the Beanpot being at TD Garden, as we've talked about. For you as a player, when you're watching all of this happen around you, and especially considering, the number of former Northeastern Huskies who are now playing professionally in the PWHL, what is it like for you as a player to get to see this happening in real time while you're, of course, getting to the point where maybe these are options for you to consider down the road?
Yeah, I think it's cool. It definitely kind of almost prepares you for that moment. I don't know where my future holds after Northeastern. I'm pretty excited to see where I go, but I could say that the way college hockey is growing and the fan base is growing, it's incredible.
Yeah, and you talked about this a little bit, but and it's not that far away. What are you hoping to see from this year's Beanpot once again at TD Garden? And now, do you think maybe your heart rate won't be quite as high as the first time? Because Dave Flynn was telling
Uh,
us back right after that first one that you guys all wear the heart rate monitors, and that he was
mhm.
seeing that was like at the national anthem, everybody was kind of all excited. And do you just think you're maybe a little bit more used to it? And are you hoping to see an even bigger turnout this year?
Yeah, it's crazy. He is right. We wore the heart rates, and I'm someone that doesn't get in the red that much, and I was in the red all of the national anthem. So I definitely hope for a bigger turnout, and I'm super excited to see it. Yeah.
Well, you have a big series this weekend, a big game against Penn State. We know what their record is. We know what your guys' record is. I know for you guys as players, you're trying to look at every game exactly the same, but, both coaches kind of threw out the idea of this could be sort of like a measuring stick, a good barometer of where you guys are. What is the hope that you guys can, obviously hoping to win, but what's the hope that you guys can get out of a weekend like this still early in the season?
Um, Confidence in a way. I think we keep building confidence each game, but this is again a top 10 matchup.
Mhm.
And it's Penn State. I'm super excited. I've had this game marked. I think they are a very physical, disciplined team. And I think with us with this series, I think if we stay tuned to our details and we stay tuned to our systems, we come out with a lot of energy and we create chances and we capitalize on those chances, we'll set a really good pace going into the series.
I got some fun questions for you now. All right. I was told that you give the score reports on the bus rides and that they're a hit. Tell us what that is.
So basically, after every Saturday game on a road game, I basically, our media, Delaney, she gives me the scores throughout college hockey, and I kind of yell score report, and I say all the scores. I kind of get messed up a couple times, but it's fun. It brings a smile, and everyone, I love to hear the reactions at the scores. So, yeah.
You took it over for someone else. Who used to do it, and how did you end up in charge of it?
Maury Murphy did it my first year. And then I think it was Abby Marone my second year. And then I'd done it the last 2 years. I don't know how I took it over. I think I'm always the last one on the bus and I might be the loudest one. So I think Delaney was just like, Jules, here, it's your go. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. So yeah.
This one's not hockey related. When you were a kid, what occupation did you want to have when you were growing up?
Um, This one's crazy. I love animals and I've always said I wanted to like be a vet or like be or I went like around like way off from it and I said a teacher because I like kids. But yeah, I don't know at this age now what my occupation is, but yeah.
And then one last one. You got a fun fact about yourself? Do you have any hidden talents? Any weird pregame rituals that you can share with us?
Um I don't have any hidden talents, I don't think. I think I can sing, I can't sing. Think I can dance, I can't dance. some pregame. We play sewer before every game, and I think I'm pretty good at sewer, but I think my teammates would say otherwise. So yeah.
All right, and I guess one final one. What are your Thanksgiving plans for this weekend?
I will be going to my roommate and teammates Lily B's house, Lily Brazis. I'm super excited to spend the holidays with her and her family.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jules Constantinople, for joining us this week. And when we come back, we'll get more into that matchup between Northeastern and Penn State coming up next on NESN. Welcome back to This Week in Hockey East. It's time to check in on some of the big women's matchups this week, including our NESN game between number 4 Penn State and number 7 Northeastern. That's a 3:30 puck drop here on Friday. And Eric, these are two teams that have dominated their conference games so far this season.
Yeah, it's really been amazing. Northeastern, as we said, unbeaten. Penn State unbeaten overall, which makes this a lot of fun. I think why has Northeastern been so good? We should dive into a couple of reasons for that. The first big thing is their special teams have been fantastic. They have the best power play in hockey so far this year at 25%. They have the best penalty kill in hockey this year at over 95%. What leads to a good penalty kill most of the time? Really good goaltenders. And once again, Northeastern has that right. They've played both goaltenders here a little bit recently. We know how good Lisa Janssen was the end of last year. She has a .925 save percentage, leads Hockey East with a 150 goals against average this year. And then we've seen a bit more of Renna Trembecki here recently. Had 30 saves over the weekend in the game she played against Maine, up to a .939 for the year. 230 save games already this season. She's been great so far. So they have that goaltending once again.
Yeah, two good goalies can never really hurt you. Dave Flint knows that very well. And some key players producing are another reason why this team has been doing so well so far. And we just talked to Jules Constantinople. She leads all Hockey East defensemen with 4 goals, 12 assists, and 16 points. She also leads all defensemen in power play goals with 4 in the whole conference. And you look at some of the freshmen that have been able to get involved so far this season for Northeastern as well. Freshman striker Zablocki with 16 points in just 14 games. And the captain, Lily Shannon, is our Jersey Mike's a sub above Women's Player of the Week. She had 4 goals last weekend against Maine. She leads Hockey East in goals. She's got 10 goals, 13 assists, and 23 points. She has the highest point per game pace in the conference. She's 1.64 points per game. Also top 5 in total face-off wins for Northeastern as their top center.
Yeah, on the other side for Penn State, as you mentioned, unbeaten so far. Just absolutely rolling. Similar stuff, right? Power play's been really good. They've scored 16 times in their last 10 games. When we think of the Penn State men, we're thinking of Gavin McKenna. When we're thinking the women, we're thinking of Tessa Janicki. She's been absolutely awesome and fun to watch so far this year, Bridgette.
Yeah, her head coach, Jeff Campersall, called her a generational talent, actually compared her to Alina Mueller, who was that for Northeastern, and said that she's a master in the face-off circle. She also blocks a lot of shots, and she leads Penn State with 25 points in 14 games played.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. As we said, you'll see that game on Friday. Another big one, again, similar to the men, bunch of non-conference games on the women's side, but one that stands out in the Nutmeg Classic. UConn, just another top 10 matchup for UConn. It's kind of been their whole season so far. They get Quinnipiac in this Connecticut rivalry. Julia Pellerin coming off a hat trick against Vermont last week. The Huskies outscored UVM 10-3 over the weekend, and Tia Chan was good once again. She had a shutout in Friday night's game to start the series. 2 shutouts so far this year, 9-3-1 record. So her being the main goalie this year and not splitting time with Megan Warner has not been an issue so far.
No, absolutely not. She's got the best save percentage in Hockey East as well coming into the weekend. And to talk about number 9, Quinnipiac, they already had 6 games against Hockey East schools, and they've won all 6. They met UConn in an exhibition matchup as well to start the season and won 3-0. So they've been good against the conference this year. And Kaylin LaMarche is someone you need to keep an eye on. She had 7 goals in the weekend against Northeastern back in October, and they're notoriously hard to score against. So she has 19 goals this season. That's the most in the nation. When we come back, we'll talk NPI, Red Hot Hockey, and Hockey East alumni in the PWHL next on This Week in Hockey East.
We continue talking around Hockey East, presented by Boston Children's Hospital, the official children's hospital of Hockey East. Boston Children's, where the world comes for answers. It is time. It's here. Thanksgiving is here. It's the most exciting part of the year. It means we can look ahead, not to the pairwise anymore, but to the NPI, which replaced the pairwise this year as what's going to decide the men's hockey tournament. It replaced the pairwise on the women's side a little while ago. We've talked about it. Why does this non-conference matter so much? Because it's the same as the pairwise, right? The NPI, which, folks, if you don't know yet, basically we used to use 3 different criteria to compare teams, and then we'd compare those numbers through the pairwise. We get rid of all of that now, and we basically just look at a hockey-specific RPI. So it's much more similar to a lot of the other college sports, and it's the same to what the women's side is doing. So it has felt volatile if you've looked at the NPI at all this year, but it's really not about the NPI, which is the point we want to get across. The point, Bridgette, is that this year has been different, and this year has been volatile, which thus is causing the NPI to look volatile so far.
Yeah, I think people have probably checked in on their favorite team and saw them somewhere way lower than they were expecting to be in the NPI. And we talked about it a lot last year on this show, how Hockey East non-conference record was just so good. Hockey East set its best out-of-conference record in league history last year. And this year, it's been different. Hockey East is 30, 25, and 5, including a losing record against the NCHC, Big Ten, ECAC. And Eric, explain what that means for the Hockey East rankings as the season goes on.
Yeah, the ECAC is the big one because that's where Hockey East had such a dominant record last year. But it does a couple things, right? The league's overall standings, because you compare on these non-conference games, drops a little bit. So, for example, Maine BC last weekend, top 15 matchup, right? But in the NPI, it's a team in the 20s against a team in the 30s. So you don't get the bump from playing your own conference because everyone is compressed a little bit. But the other thing is just there haven't been these massive wins that we saw last year, right? Northeastern has beaten Denver, but that's really the one big win for a Hockey East team, some of the top Hockey East teams. Remember that quality win bonus? That still kind of factors into the NPI, and those wins just haven't been there. So, like, Providence played Michigan, didn't get those wins, so that bump is not there. BC against Denver and Quinnipiac, not there. BU over Michigan State. So when you don't have those wins, that's what really bumped. Remember how many of those wins Hockey East had early in the season? Maybe a little bit of bad luck, right? BC gets a nice series out at Minnesota. Minnesota hasn't been as good. We talked about it with Notre Dame. That's not going to bump the way you would hope this weekend. So things become really important as we get now into this portion of the season. The Ivies have been really good, so they're way up there, and you're going to have to pick off some of these games with, 25% of the non-conference games left are this weekend, Bridgette. So this weekend becomes super important, including down at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that's a big non-conference game this weekend. Red Hot Hockey Saturday night at 8 p.m. between number 19 BU and number 17 Cornell at Madison Square Garden. And that's just one of the examples you're talking about, Eric. BU is currently all the way down at 38 in the NPI. If they win Red Hot Hockey, they'll jump up in the NBI. They'll help out the league's record against ECAC teams. And then hopefully, if they get going, that will factor in if they go on a run down the road. So a lot of important non-conference matchups this weekend, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, 11 of them this weekend on the men's side should be really, really interesting. Important weekend for Hockey East. Also want to quickly mention the PWHL is underway. 44 Hockey East alums on opening night rosters. That's really, really cool to see. That's a new record for Hockey East. We'll follow that as we go through this year. Hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. For Bridgette, I'm Eric. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll talk next week.